Hooray, we're on. Sorry,
we did it.
Technical glitches. Great to see you. Thank you for joining. Thanks to everyone for joining. Sorry about that. We always take a couple of minutes to get our tech working. And welcome to another one of AllBright's Instagram live discussions. Today I'm talking to the amazing Dr. Yvette Ankrah, MBE, about the art of work-life balance, something we all need at the moment as we pivot, adapt, and try and thrive in this new climate. So welcome, Yvette.
Thank you.
I'm just going to give a little bit of background on you. So like AllBright, Yvette is a prominent advocate for women in business. She's worked with female entrepreneurs around the world to achieve sustainable success without burning out, something which I am all ears for this afternoon. She has over 20 years experience running her own business and coaching other women in business. In 2013, she won the Microsoft and O2 Award for Business. And in 2015, she was shortlisted for Best Coach at the Best Business Women Awards. She was awarded an MBE for her work with women in business in 2017. And if that is not all, last year she was awarded a PhD in sociology. So amazing experience, and we really look forward to hearing all about how we can achieve that elusive balance this afternoon. Before we get totally started, best way to ask a question is to write in the comments below, and we will answer as many as possible as we go through. So Yvette, in light of the pandemic and the situation that we all find ourselves in, how can we manage our health and well-being when anxiety is more likely to be running high? We're worried about our business, our family, our financial security. What can we do?
Okay, my first tip for this is take a breath and let it go. There's absolutely nothing that we can do about what's going on outside, but we can choose how we interact with it. We can make a choice about how much we're going to let it come into our world. So we are stressed. There's lots going on. Social media is not helping in many cases. So, you know, making a choice of what you wish to consume right now, what you wish to focus on, and knowing that you do still have power and control. So it's a power about I'm choosing in myself, my personal choices. I'm going to be calm. I'm going to use my tools to keep me in that space, because that way I can manage all of this that's going on from a space of being calm. And it's difficult, but that's kind of the first thing, because I can do nothing about the fact that we can't really go out. I can't see friends and family, all those things, but I can choose how I keep myself going, what I focus on, and what I don't allow constantly around me. So no Sky News 24/7, no constant scrolling. And it's like, right, I will tune in once a day to make sure that I'm kept informed. And that's it for that. And just knowing that this is where I am, this is what's going on, accepting that, and just working from that space.
So finding your calm is amazing advice, but you know, we chatted earlier today, and I was sprinting around the place like I'm sure many other people are, trying to manage work, homeschooling, various Zoom calls happening at the same time, technology going wrong, Wi-Fi going wrong. Give us some, you know, you have chosen to be calm, and I think that's quite interesting, because that's an active choice. You're saying it's something you've decided to do. Give us some tips about how we can channel that inner calm that you are projecting.
Practice. So, you know, if there's something that's going on, stop, take a breath. Breathing is one of the things that we often forget to do, and we often don't do very well. And we can just, I don't know if you've come across 4-4 breathing.
No.
So you
tell me, because I'm a shallow breather. I can see I'm practicing just now.
Okay. So it's a quick tip to get you grounded and focused and present. So you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and out for 4. And you do that a few times, and you'll suddenly find yourself just feeling just a bit more calm, a bit more focused. And then you say, okay, what next? It's just a very small thing that you can do, but it just helps you just stop for a moment and just give you that time to think. nice bit of oxygen goes to your brain as well, and you physically make yourself just stop for a minute rather than doing that frantic headless chicken thing that we all do.
We should all do it while we're watching.
Yeah.
I'm doing it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? The most simple thing of all, and we don't tend to stop and breathe or think about how we're breathing.
No. But we all have that as a thing that we can instantly access, just our breath. Just focusing on our breathing just for a few moments just calms you right down.
So you are managing all of this, but you have successfully built a business, juggled motherhood. We were just chatting about homeschooling and the joys this morning.
Yeah, it is not my skill set. I admit that happily and freely.
Massive respect to teachers, whole new respect for them. And you have completed a PhD, but you also describe yourself as a recovering overachiever. I love that. What do you mean by recovering overachiever?
So, as you can see by lots of the things that I've done, I like achieving. I like going out there. I am addicted to learning. It is one of the main things that I'm addicted to. And I would always go for more. I would want more. You know, the first degree, yeah, did that. Masters, yeah, did that. Oh, right, the PhD, next, yes. The next job, the next accolade, the next level. And I kept doing that. And it seems good and looks good on paper, but it nearly killed me in the process. And all of that pushing and questing and striving and goal driven kind of nature that I had was not great for my health. It completely ruined my health. But for so many people outwardly, they could see I was still smiling, I was still showing up, but it was not working very well inside. And physically, I got very, very, very ill. And then I had to start to make different decisions. So I still like to achieve. There's still so many things I want to do, but I do it from a different place. I don't do it from a place of burning myself out or overwhelm or, ignoring my body. Because if you ignore it, it will scream quite loudly until you listen.
Was that the moment, so when you felt physically unwell, was that the moment when you thought things were going to change? Because I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this feel burnt out, exhausted. How do you know when enough's enough?
I had to learn the very, very hard way. So I was diagnosed with a condition called fibromyalgia, and I spent 6 good years in crippling agony and constant pain. And I achieved quite a lot of these things during that time. My PhD took 10 years because I got so sick in the middle of it and had a child. But that wasn't the moment. It wasn't that moment. It was the moment when I'd had another medical procedure I didn't need, and I was recovering from that. I had a lumbar puncture. And while I was recovering from the lumbar puncture, it was that moment. So it took me about 4 or 5 years because I'd spent more of my time battling my illness rather than actually saying, there's kind of a reason this thing's here. Let me explore that a little bit more. Maybe listen to what's being said by my body. I kind of kept saying, no, I can keep going, I can keep going, I can keep going. And particularly women, especially if you've got children, you've got responsibilities, you keep going. Even when you're ill, you keep going, because that's what you do until you actually cannot. So I got to this point where I was lying there thinking, do you know what? I can't move. I actually cannot move. So I kind of have to think, what do I want to change? When am I going to change? And it was, okay, you're going to do this now. And that was a good couple of years ago.
Have you stuck to your changes?
Oh, God, yes. I do not think I could have coped with right now if I hadn't have done the work that I've done.
Yeah.
I would have been in bed completely out of, in pain, not being able to function at all if I hadn't done the work I've done right now.
So you had that realization because you obviously had something quite dramatic happening with your health. But a lot of people will maybe not be at that stage, but they are prioritizing their family, their work, their colleagues, anything else but themselves. How do you start to think about yourself higher up in that priority list? I mean, something that you talk about is this thing around self-care. But how do you change the habits of a lifetime of you always being at the sort of bottom of the pile and the last thing on the to-do list?
Well, think about what happens if you can't function. If you cannot do the things you do, what happens to everything else? It will kind of collapse like a house of cards. So taking care of yourself is not optional, it's mandatory. You have to, because you can't take care of all the things that you do without you being well. Your business, your family, everything that is connected to you works when you're working at your optimum. So it's not selfish, it's not indulgent, it's necessary. And I think that's the first bit of change of thinking that we have to have, particularly as women, is it is necessary for us to look after ourselves and to care for ourselves and to start putting ourselves first. And, you know, the first time you sort of say to somebody, actually, no, or I'm going to do this because I need to take this time out or whatever, they might react because they're so used to you saying yes or used to you just doing everything. Empower other people sometimes so you can have the space to step back yourself. Even children, they can do stuff themselves. Even from quite a young age, they can play, or they can tidy up toys, they can do small things, which gives you 5 minutes to think. 5 minutes to breathe or have that cup of tea, not cold for a change.
Is it something that you think you can practice? Because again, I think you mentioned that there's an expectation. So there's the expectation that you have on yourself, but there's also the expectation of others, your colleagues, your boss, your family, your kids, your friends, whatever it may be. So how do you start to change that? Because, you know, something dramatic happened to you, something dramatic actually happened to me. I got pneumonia in my previous life, my previous career, and it was a bit of a wake-up call. It was kind of, I had a couple of, as my friends like to joke, Victorian illnesses that sort of struck me, and it was like, okay, it was almost like my body was making an intervention. But if that doesn't happen, how do you, so, you know, today you might go, okay, great, I'm going to take some time out for myself, this is what I need to have a cup of tea, or I need to just be left alone for 5 minutes, whatever it is, but that's, how do you make that continual change? I'm just interested in that, about breaking habits and how we keep coming back to this.
Yeah, this is where the self-care planning comes in. So as we talked this morning briefly, when people think about self-care, they go into that, oh, it's the glass of wine at the end of the day, or that spa trip, or
right now.
yeah, they're all really important. Yeah, but the idea about self-care is, it seems that, you know, people go towards that indulgent side of things, but self-care is about habits and practices that you do on a daily basis that support your well-being, and it covers a whole range of areas, from your work to your psychological, physical, emotional, spiritual, and relationships. So you start looking at these different areas of your life and think, what can I do to make these the most optimum? If things are going well in an area, how can you do more of it? If things aren't working so well, what can you do to change? You could think of one thing to change. It could be a conversation that you might need to have. It could be simply decluttering your office, but looking at small changes that you do regularly to help you. So that could be meditation, exercise, drinking water. Most of us are so severely dehydrated. And that's another thing, another good tip. Drink water. We're mostly water. We don't drink enough.
Water. Breathe. I like it.
Breathe. Simple things that we can all do. You know, and even meditation is one of the biggest things. So the two things that I do on a daily basis, meditate and do my gratitude. And meditation is not all sitting cross-legged saying om, because some people have this idea about it. And if you're from different cultures or religious practices, you might think, oh, I can't meditate, or that's not part of it. It's simply the act of being in the moment, finding a way to be present. So when you're focusing on your breath, that does the same thing. It could be looking at a candle. It could be physical. It could be walking, but just noticing how your feet touch the floor and just being in that moment, not thinking about 1,000 different things, just being in your body in that moment. So those are things that I love to do. And the gratitude, if you really want to change your mindset, gratitude is the biggest one.
Yeah. Just taking a moment to be grateful for what we've got. Did you learn to meditate?
Yes, I had to learn, and I actually have become a meditation teacher actually, as well. That was the last bit of qualifications I did before lockdown happened. And yes, I did, because it wasn't something that came natural to me. I'm not a natural still person. I'm always moving. I'm always doing something. So finding a way to be present was really important, and it was one of the biggest changes to my world, to keep that presence. But the gratitude, that practice, it changes your brain. It actually changes how your brain operates. So continuous gratitude for 21 days. you start to see the changes. Keep going for 90 days and you've created a new habit, but also your brain operates differently. You start perceiving things in a different way. And it has been clinically, shown to help people with low moods and things like that. So right now, if there's one thing that you might want to take up, is every night before bed, 3 things you're grateful for.
Yeah, it's great advice. Just ends up being a habit and also gives you a cups half full kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about business. How do we focus on the future given the crisis period we're in at the moment? And should we be just focusing on trying to get through the next day or the next few days? How do we think about our careers, our businesses in this period?
To be honest, I think it depends on where you're at. If you are experiencing a lot of anxiety right now, if there's so much going on, there's no point saying to you to plan for 18 months because your brain's not going to do that. You need to be able to get through each day and find a way to make sure that you get through each day and find a positive thing each day to focus on. However, not everybody is feeling the high level of anxiety. There are some people who it's business as usual, they're carrying on. So if you are in that space, do think beyond just now. Don't make decisions based on right now, because you're going to be making them based on a crisis, making it based on something that may not be there in 6 months. You can't base your whole business model on what's happening right now. But the biggest thing is to look at what's going on with your customers and clientele. They may completely change because of what's gone on. Speak to them, find out what's going on with them, where they're at, how can you support your customers and clients? Even if everything's fallen out for them, how can you, reach out and still have a space of leadership for your clients? And start thinking about what you can do to support them right now as well. The community, we all need community. And if you've already got a community that you're serving, don't stop serving them. Keep speaking to them, keep engaging with them. Even if it's just you get on a Zoom once a week and have coffee. It's important to have that connection.
Yeah, I had one of my friends, Nick Govier, who was talking about creativity, and what she's been doing with her agency is all of her clients, some of whom are obviously not working with at the moment, she's doing online fitness courses for them because that's something that they can give back during that time.
Yeah.
So you are actually thinking about, you've been working on a project yourself, I guess. Are you continuing with that? Is this a time to plan and think about how to get that launched well? Is that something we should be using this time for in terms of business planning?
Definitely. We often work so much in our businesses, we don't get the chance to work on them. If you've been given this opportunity to step back a little bit, now's the time to look at all the different aspects of your business, from operations to marketing to products and services, whatever's going on. Now's the time to reflect and look at it and go back to that why. Why did you set up that business? Why are you passionate about it? Is that still there? If that is still there, think about what you want it to look like and who you want to serve. Use this time to do all of that. The project I'm working on, I'm still working on it because I've been reaching out and speaking to the people I want to work with. They still want to do it. They're still interested. They still want to engage. So I'm not going to not do that because that market still needs that support.
And what about people who are sitting thinking about a pivot or this being a moment to think about starting their own business? Is it a good time, do you think, to be thinking about starting a business or taking your side hustle into a actual business?
I think it's time to work on it. You might not want to launch it, but now is definitely time to work on it. But even with the launching, again, it will go back to who is your target audience? There's a lot of people who are making money and sometimes making more money than they've ever made right now. If those are people that are in your target audience, launch by all means. If your target audience is not that space, you might want to think, okay, who is it that I can work with? Or I'm going to wait and work with these people and do it differently. And with the pivot, I've been speaking to a lot of my clients who were thinking about going online. Now they're online. They're not thinking about it anymore. They've said, right, that's it. They've just moved online.
They're just going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, they've just done it. All those fears and nerves about using Zoom or Facebook Lives, they've gone. They're like, right, I'm in front of my community, I'm going to speak. So,
well, it's a great time to do it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And obviously you've set up your own business. Give us some pearls of wisdom, why you started your own business and what's good about it, what we should be thinking about.
I started it because I saw so many women who needed support and there wasn't any support there. So I was at these mother and baby groups, and babies are cute and lovely, but I'd like to talk about other things. So, you know, we ended up talking about different things, and I found out that these women had no support, and I switched from working with small arts organisations to working with women. And what I love is flexibility. I can work around the school run. That's how I built my business. It's around my child. When he broke his ankle, I was able to still work from home. When he then on the same ankle then sprained said ankle a few months later, I was able to do that again. So I've already had practice of the homeschooling and working from home. So yeah, so it's, you know, it's, if you are passionate, if you have purpose, if you know that the thing that you really want to do makes your heart sing, and you can also find a way to monetize it, because obviously it's a business, it's not, you know, your hobby, then go for it. But decide that you want a business rather than create another job. Because if you create another job for yourself, you're going to be in the same stress. So decide if you're just going to be freelance, that's fine. But if you actually want a business, you need to build it from the start as if it's going to be a business. That's the one, you know, main thing to how you set up. But then also get help, and don't expect it to happen overnight.
Yeah. How long did it take you to build up your business?
Probably about 2 years, because I was still doing the day job and going back and forth. I used my tube journey as a time to write ebooks and build my website and train journey. So I used my commute to do those things. And then I launched a women's network and did stuff like that on my days off. So
doesn't sound like any days off, Yvette.
Not really. But that's why that's what I mean. That is why you don't need to do it the way I did it, but it's looking at how you use your time. But that passion has to drive you. It really does, because there will be times that you're going to be up at 1 o'clock in the morning, especially if you've got a day job or children or whatever. And if you're going to do that, you need to really know why and what the purpose is behind you doing this. And my thing before was I'd usually work 12-hour days when I worked in corporate life. And I thought, if I'm going to do that, I'd rather do that for myself.
Yeah. So it was a conscious decision.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, we were talking a bit about boundaries and about, you know, the fact that quite often we're not that great, women are not that great at putting up boundaries and saying this is okay, this is not okay. You have pushed back during your career and said no to certain sort of people or opportunities. What's your advice to us who might struggle to push back on the demands of bosses and family and friends and colleagues, etc.?
I think about why you're saying yes. Really think about what that yes means. And if you're saying yes to something, what does it mean you're saying no to? Often you're saying no to something that you really want or you care about or is part of your own value system. So before you say that yes, understand what that yes actually means. And it is okay. You have permission to say no, especially if it doesn't serve you, doesn't help you, makes you feel resentful or upset. And as we mentioned earlier, now might be the optimum time to say no to people, because you've got a really good reason why you can't do certain things.
Yeah.
Yes,
you know, it's a moment to think about who those sort of perhaps toxic people are in your life. You've now got great reason to be able to say no. Or to reframe boundaries, I suppose. Yeah,
to put them there, because the thing is, people will keep pushing those boundaries if you keep allowing them to. If you say yes all the time, they're not going to expect you to do anything else other than whatever they need you to do. And sometimes I feel, particularly for family, it's harder with family. But it's about getting them to be empowered. If you do this thing for them all of the time, they'll never do it for themselves. And you end up feeling, you know, going to a martyrdom kind of mode and not happy and feeling drained. That's not great for you. And that, again, adds to your own load. Women have got enough load, you know. I'm thinking about what I'm making for dinner, how I'm making, you know, how I'm going to get the food order in, as well as clients, juggling my timetable and keeping my child happy, healthy and sane. All of that on top, I can take away one thing as well.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, this thing around why it is that so many of us put ourselves at the bottom of the pile and the bottom of the to-do list. And I think it's just that notion of that people don't think about enough, that if you're happier, then you are better. So, you know, you're a better mum, a better partner, colleague, boss, whatever it may be. But it's just a shame that so many of us have to fall over before we actually prioritize ourselves.
Exactly.
Right. I've got a question here.
Okay.
How do you switch off when the end of the workday is just a case of moving from one room to another? Great question.
Well, change the room into something more of a, this is home. Maybe you could change decor, move around furniture, but you're changing space, which is a good thing, because I know some people are in one room all the time.
Yeah.
And if you are even just changing from a chair to the bed or whatever it is you need to do, physically moving. But it might be that you create a ritual around that as well. It could be that you go and take a shower or something, or change out of work clothes into home clothes, something where there's a shift, because whatever practice you had during your normal going to work day and then coming home, maybe bring that back in. It could be just, taking off the suit, putting on some tracksuit bottoms, whatever it is, switching states.
Yeah.
And just doing something around that.
I heard some good advice yesterday from someone who'd spent a lot of time in a submarine, which is similar to what we're doing at the moment. Yeah. And he actually said you need to make sure that you change your habits at the weekend, because otherwise every day just blends into the next. So if you're, with our moment where we're all allowed out to do a bit of exercise, certainly my family, we've been going out to the park at the end of the road every day, roughly the same time every day. And I'm like, okay, how's the weekend going to be any different? And so our big plan is to actually change it up and walk somewhere different and go somewhere different. But I think it's quite good advice, actually, because otherwise the days are just blending into each other, and it's sometimes hard to even remember what day it is.
Yes, I did struggle with that today. My son said, oh no, it's definitely Wednesday. I said, no, I'm sure it's Thursday. It happens to be my niece's birthday, so I was like, right, it's Thursday today.
Yeah, it's hard to remember. So I think that is really good advice, just switching things around, and also looking at your surroundings and thinking, oh, I've always quite fancied moving that chair from there to there. Let's give it a go.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the hardest thing you find to strike a balance with?
I think it's the child responsibility bit and the schooling. At the moment, he's on Easter holidays, which is great. Having this conversation last week, I'd have been slightly more tense, I believe.
Yeah.
Because my son got unwell, so we actually quarantined a bit early. So we've been inside for already quite a while before it was announced. And it's making sure there's a balance of him being supported and him getting some learning done at the same time as me still trying to work and my husband still trying to work. Yeah. And that's been the hardest one. And the other thing that I mentioned to you this morning is having to juggle my diary with my husband's diary. As normally I live my life. I don't have to break out my day according to his meetings and my meetings, because he's in one space and I'm in another. But now we have to do that far more, and making sure that we can work well as we're in the house with each other all the time.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge. Who's going to hog the Wi-Fi is the issue in our house. Right, another one here. I suffer from anxiety and I'm really anxious about my job. How am I supposed to focus on anything but work right now, and managing unrealistic expectations and demands from my company?
This is one that I think I'm seeing quite a lot, because they've got this idea that I've seen this with a lot of companies. They switch to home and then it's business as usual. It's not business as usual. I think you're well within your right to speak to your line manager and explain to them how you are right now. They should be doing some keeping in touch with you, not just demanding work from you, because even if you're doing the same tasks, you're not operating from the same space. And they should be acknowledging that. And if they're not, do go back to them and say, these are the things I can do right now, and see if you can get some support. Also see if there's any HR, or if you've got any other representation within your organisation that can help you. I know some organisations have counselling services or people that you can speak to. If you've got that, tap into that right now. The very good companies are reaching out, regularly keeping in contact and seeing how people are, not just what they're producing.
Yeah, and also I think it's that thing around what's your network during this time can help with anxiety. And I certainly think it's important to have different networks of people that you can talk to and reach out to. And, you know, if they're not doing it, then perhaps your colleagues, you can do, we're doing virtual wine o'clock, you know, so once a week, or virtual coffee, or whatever it may be, and kind of using those WhatsApp groups and using, you know, the AllBright community as well, so that you can share, and that you can you know, be open about the fact that we are going to have some days where we feel good, and some days that are kind of meh, and some days where we're going to feel pretty low, particularly if we don't even know what day it is and every day is blending into the next. Someone says here, what traits do you attribute your success to?
Determination, tenacity, and also family. I'm very connected with my family, so this not being able to see them is actually quite hard. I'm from a large family, and we always support each other, so that's part of it. I can't do the things I do without support, so without, you know, my husband entertaining my son right now so I can speak to you, you know, my mum chipping in, my sister looking after, you know, my son on occasion and things like that, but also for them saying, you know, you've got this, you can do this. There's some days I need cheerleading too. I cheerlead everybody else, and I need my cheerleaders, and my family, my close friends do that for me as well. As well as you said, networks. I'm really kind of connected to some really good networks. I've made some amazing relationships, and those are, you know, what I turn to. A lot of my friends do not have businesses, so I need to have a business community that also holds me together as well, and holds me accountable sometimes. So yeah. And
I think coming back to that point on the person who asked about anxiety, I think that most people will be feeling anxious at certain moments, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. And I think it's surprising how open people are about that. So if you actually say to your friends or your whichever groups you're involved with, I'm feeling a bit anxious today, I've been very surprised and heartened to see that many people they're trying to pep each other up, you know, might be just through a joke or a silly meme, or it might be actually a more serious kind of conversation, but I think we can be more open, and I think that we shouldn't be ashamed of saying we're having a low day or a difficult time.
Far from it. And what I'm very happy about is that before this happened, we were starting to have those conversations about mental health. We were starting to really get open about depression, anxiety, all of those things that are across all society, and we were starting to have those conversations. We still need to continue those conversations. It is okay to not feel okay. It is okay to not be bouncy and happy every day. I'm not, you know, and I sit with that. Sometimes I just sit with that. When I'm frustrated, angry, annoyed, I sit with it. I just don't dwell in there. That's the difference. I will sit with it, I'll feel it, I'll allow myself to go through that. And yesterday I gave myself a day off because I was tired and I wasn't feeling it. So I just didn't do anything.
I love that. So give yourself permission, take the time to be grateful, drink lots of water, don't forget to breathe, be open and honest about how you're feeling, and make sure that you stay connected. Look, I think that's brilliant advice. Thank you so much, Yvette. That's really appreciated. Make sure that you keep an eye on our Instagram live. We've got lots of more exciting content coming up, and if you fancy something different, then put your chef's hat on tonight. We have got Sabrina Gidder, our executive chef, is at 6 o'clock is doing a live cooking demonstration, so do tune in for that. And if you would like to get in touch with any feedback or suggest other themes that you want to see, please do so. And if you miss any of our events, then you can catch up on Instagram TV and join our AllBright Connect platforms at allbrightconnect.com, and of course follow us on social channels. So thank you once again, Yvette. You can now go and find your son, who's probably been having a lovely time with your husband.
Yeah, I think so.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, and thank you all for watching.